All right, are you ready for some more conversations about reading? Well, first, let's be classical and let's review Adler's 4 levels of reading. We talked about on our first day together elementary reading. Remember that your littlest learners through foundations are likely working really hard to master the elementary reading, okay? And some inspectional reading, the elementary reading that encompasses going from illiteracy to literacy and all of the reading readiness and the growing in vocabulary and picking up context clues. And then the inspectional reading where we teach our students to skim and to do some pre-reading and some superficial reading so that they know what the book is about and that they know where to go back and find more information and to dig deeper. And we talked about, when we talked about inspectional reading, we talked about marking our text and how that helps the book become part of us and helps us develop a relationship and have a conversation with the book. Your lower challenge students are pushing ahead from inspectional reading into analytical reading, and your older challenge students are beginning to stretch toward syntopical reading. So here's the thing. I want you to really hold on to this thought. We never quit growing and stretching. All of us, even us grown-ups, need to work on becoming better readers. We can work on our analytical reading and our syntopical reading specifically so that we continue to grow and stretch. Here's the thing. We don't quit stretching because it's hard. We quit stretching because we don't know how. Many of us have stopped teaching reading intentionally to our students because we didn't know what we were supposed to be teaching them. After phonics, what is there? Now we know what there is. So I encourage you to continue teaching reading through the elementary and the inspectional into the analytical and the syntopical. So today we're going to examine those levels of reading and find out what they're all about. So what do you think is the aim of analytical reading? So just look at that word, analytical. Think about what it means to analyze. Okay, what is the aim of analytical reading? To break things apart in order to understand. Yes, the aim of analytical reading is comprehension. If the aim of elementary reading is figuring out what is it and what does it say, inspectional reading, how is it put together, and beginning to think what does it mean, analytical reading really is about what does this mean? Help me understand the ideas. Our goal in reading usually is understanding. And we achieve understanding, as you know. Remember our wheel? What helps us achieve understanding? Asking good questions and putting the pieces together. So we achieve understanding by wrestling with ideas, by comparing, by analyzing them. So what's the quickest way to understanding? So think back when we talked about the art of dialectic that really is pursuing understanding. How do we achieve that understanding? By use of the art of dialectic, asking questions. The quickest way to understanding is to be a fully involved, active reader asking questions. So an active reader, now I'm not talking about run around the room while you read, okay? Although I do have a friend who said that her 5-year-old listened best when he rode his tricycle in a circle as she read aloud, okay? So maybe your students do need to be moving in some way to listen well. But active reading that I'm talking about, that we're talking about together today, is about asking good questions. Okay, so let's look at these 4 questions. 1, what is this book about as a whole? So what's the theme of this book or this work? 2, what is being said in detail and how? Okay, within the theme, what are the main ideas and arguments being espoused? 3, is the book true in whole or in part? We're going to look too that this can be, is it true to human nature? Because if a work is obviously a fiction, or you feel that it might be fictional, there still might be truth to human nature involved. And 4, what of it? Why do we care? What of it? Is this significant for you? Now, if you're looking at these 4 questions, number 1 and number 2 are obviously part of inspectional reading that we talked about yesterday, okay? What is this book saying by how it is put together and how it is organized? And on the surface, what seem to be the big ideas that are going to be covered in this work? Okay. Number 3 is clearly analytical, because determining if the book is true or true to human nature in whole or in part requires you to analyze and consider those first 2 questions. Number 4, what of it, is part analytical and part syntopical. Okay. Partly, what of it requires you to pull not just from the work you're reading currently, but your ideas that you are pulling from other sources that you've read before or that you're reading concurrently. Okay, these questions, or some form of them, can be used if you're reading books or articles or poems or documents or plays, all of those types of reading material. Asking these kinds of questions will also help you cultivate some awesome conversations. They're thinking questions. They are designed to draw the active reader into ideas. So they're not questions that lend themselves to writing a book report. What's the title? Who's the author? Who are the main characters? But the ideas contained in the poem or the play or the story or the sermon. So let's see how this works. How do we become active readers asking good questions? We're going to practice with something that many of you may have read at one time or another, or read at least in part. We're going to look at an excerpt from Homer's The Odyssey. Okay? Now, we are going to answer these questions after we read. Okay? What is the book about as a whole? So what's the theme? What is being said in detail in this passage? And how is it being said? Is this true or true to human nature in whole or in part? And what of it? What am I supposed to do with this? Okay? All right. So remember that some of these are inspectional questions and some of these are analytical questions. All right. So the last question, what of it, talks about how, in light of what we've learned, how should we then live? How should it make a difference to us? Syntopically, and those are analytical questions. That's an analytical question. Syntopically, what do other works say about the themes or the qualities or the actions being described? We'll work on it. I want to read to you an excerpt from Homer's The Odyssey. And if you're interested in going back and looking at this excerpt again, it is from book 21, and we're going to read lines 72 to line 95. Okay, so let me set the stage for you a little bit. In this book of Homer's The Odyssey, King Odysseus, has been gone from home for a long time. He's on a long and winding road. He's been on a voyage, many things, because here we are. All of these things have happened to him so far. He's been on a journey and lots of things have happened to him. While he's been gone, his poor wife has been home mourning her husband, who was a truly noble king, wise and wonderful, greatly to be missed, and she has greatly missed him. She's been mourning. She has also been overrun with other suitors who are eager to both marry her and have her for their own, and to acquire Odysseus's kingdom. Okay, so they have pestered the life out of her. So poor Penelope, tired of ignoring the suitors or avoiding the suitors, she has devised a way to choose among the many suitors. Okay, so that's where we pick up the story in line 72. She's come to a plan. She's devised a plan. So her servants, her women followed, bringing a chest that held the bronze and the iron axes, trophies won by the master. That radiant woman, once she reached her suitors, drawing her glistening veil across her cheeks, paused now where a column propped the sturdy roof, with one of her loyal handmaids stationed to either side, and delivered an ultimatum to her suitors. Listen to me, my overbearing friends, you who plague this palace day and night, drinking, eating us out of house and home with the Lord and Master absent, gone so long. The only excuse that you can offer is your zest to win me as your bride. So, to arms, my gallants. Here is the prize at issue right before you. Look, I set before you the great bow of King Odysseus now. The hand that can string this bow with greatest ease, that shoots an arrow clean through all 12 axes, he is the man I follow. Yes, forsaking this house where I was once a bride, this gracious house so filled with the best that life can offer. I shall always remember it, that I know, even in my dreams. She turned and ordered the good swineherd now to set the bow and the gleaming iron axes out before the suitors. Okay, so tell me what's happening. Let's go back. What is this about? I've given you the backstory, so you know that the whole work is about Odysseus's trip, his efforts to get home. What is this portion about? What is this about as a whole? What are we looking at? Yeah, in broadest scope, we're looking at the battle for Penelope's hand, okay?
To some degree, she's acknowledging that Odysseus may never return.
Okay, so apparently she has, if not made her peace with it, at least come to the understanding that she's going to have to do something, that she can't keep waiting for him to come home. And whether she has given up in part, or she's just completely tired of these people eating her out of house and home. And she is weary with trying to avoid them and put them off. She's come to the decision that, all right, we got to do something about this, and I've got to pick one of you, obviously. And so she has devised a contest. What's being said in detail and how? She has opened up her husband's chest of arms, his armory, as it were, and she's pulled out. We saw the 12 axes. Yeah. So she's pulled out the axes and his famous bow. All right. So she has made it a heroic task. She has alluded to the fact that Odysseus himself was so amazing that she sort of thinks nobody's going to measure up. But in an effort to see who comes closest, she's putting it all out there for them. Okay? So, first question, all right. What's the story about and what's being said? You've told me. She's got to choose a suitor to accept, and she has set out for them a test of heroic proportions, right? Okay, now, is the story, the third question was, is the story true in whole or the part? So what do you think? Is this true? Remember, you could see the story as, is this true to human nature? Okay. Okay, I see people nodding. Yes, it is true to human nature. In what way? Okay, a good wife who loves her husband, who doesn't want to give up hope, would keep waiting, would keep hoping. Okay, she keeps hoping. Yes, it's also true to human nature that people who want her hand are going to be very persistent, and that their persistence might get really grating and really annoying. And you would get to the point where you just knew that you had to do something. But we got to move on. So that's true to human nature. And so she devises this task. Is that true? When we come to a point where a decision has to be made, do we devise a test of some sort to decide what choice to make? Yeah, I think that's very true to human nature. You feel somehow unequal in yourself sometimes to make the determination, so you set up a test and you see what's going to come out of this.
And she's devising a way to get rid of all these annoying suitors by setting the standard so impossibly high.
Yes. So she sets the standard super high so that she can get the very best, and that maybe her choice will be narrowed for her.
And in her heart, she believes that her husband really is the only one who can truly do this.
Yeah, she does believe that her husband is truly the only one. If you look underneath the details, what is this story about? It's about bravery. The whole of the Odyssey, you could say, is about adventure. It's about honor. It's about loyalty. Think of the loyalty that Penelope has evidenced. She has been so loyal to the memory of Odysseus. So the book is about those virtues of loyalty and honor and bravery and adventure. So what's being said in detail? As you read between the lines, you can see that, yes, Penelope loves Odysseus. She loves him. What happened right before the lines we started reading is that she has spent hours weeping. She has gone and she's thrown open his armory and she has wept over these weapons, and especially this bow. So she loves him so much, and she is still mourning. And what you said a minute ago is really true. She measures all men by Odysseus. That's why she's so disgusted with these suitors, is they don't come up in any way to her memory of her husband. They are not honorable or brave or industrious, any of the sterling qualities that she remembers Odysseus having. So she measures every man by Odysseus. What else? Yes, you can see that Penelope sees through the suitors, because she talks about all you want to do is sit around here drinking and eating us out of house and home. So she knows that it's not all about her. Yes, they want to marry her, but it's not just because they love her. It's also because they want Odysseus's kingdom. So she sees through them. Yes, and she issues the challenge to show them up. She issues a challenge that I think she believes none of them will be able to meet, because she thinks nobody can live up to Odysseus. Yes. She is very cunning and creative. So she devises this contest that on the surface looks like, okay, this is legit. But she really thinks, ain't none of y'all going to be able to do this, okay? So she is very cunning. If nobody can do it, then I'll be free. Okay. So she makes a hard decision because that is a gamble. What if she's surprised and somebody can do it? Okay. So that's what's being said in the detail. Is this true to human nature? Yeah, you told me this is how people sometimes act. Okay. They are all the people that want something are not always honorable. They are like these suitors who have their own motives and their own motivations. And it is a wise woman indeed, a wise man indeed, like Penelope, who can see through the subterfuge of people's motivations and people's actions. So what? That's the fourth question. So what? What of it? In light of what we have read and what we see and what we understand that the passage or the work means, how should we live? What should we emulate in this? What do you find to emulate? Okay, loyalty. The loyalty that Penelope shows is something that I would like to have. That loyalty. So loyalty is a thing to emulate. That's something, given what we now know about loyalty, we could choose that as a quality to plant in our own lives. What else? What else?
For stubbornness, I think.
She was very stubborn. She persevered for a long time, persevering in the face of little hope. It's not like Odysseus could send a telegram, hey, I'm trying to get back as fast as I can, okay? There's nobody who came to tell her, yep, he's been delayed and he's been delayed again. She is persevering in the face of hopelessness. So the perseverance of Penelope could be a good thing for us. Anything else? Anything else to emulate?
I believe she has a high sense of self-worth.
Yes.
She doesn't give herself away to anybody.
She has set her worth way up there. She was not willing to marry one of these ne'er-do-wells, one of these hangers-on, one of these men who was just interested in her property or her kingdom or a life of ease, riding the coattails of King Odysseus. Okay. Her self-worth, I think it. Wouldn't you like your wives to value your nobility so much that she thinks no other man could live up to it? Women, wouldn't you like to be that faithful to a husband who's been absent for years, that you devise all kinds of tests to hold off other relationships? There's lots to emulate in here. Now, if you want to look at this symptotically, I would suggest you think about what other works say about honor and bravery and honesty and loyalty. You could bring in discussions from the Bible, from other works of literature that your family has read, from devotional readings, from sermons that you've been privileged to hear, from journals that you have kept or that others have kept. Syntopically, you could consider lots of different sources on these same ideals and cultivate some rich and deep conversations. Now that you have practiced this and you know how to do it, I want you to practice with a small group or with a partner or a small group right where you are with another tale from this epic poem. You're going to look at book 19, about 80 lines in there, and afterwards you'll have some time to share what you've learned.